Welcome to another episode of Out Loud and Laughing. Get ready. It's Bryan and Jon, two gay cousins having big talks and even bigger laughs. Join us. Let's see what they're up to. It's Out Loud and Laughing. Welcome to another episode of Out Loud and Laughing. I'm Jon.
I'm Bryan.
And today we are going down memory lane. Get your yearbooks out.
Get your 2002, 2003 yearbook out. We are old ladies talking about high school.
Here's looking at you, National Honor Society.
Oh, I remember our yearbooks. It's funny, like some of them were in color, but some pages weren't. So there was still some black and white happening, even in 2002. So
Wizard of Oz.
Not to age ourselves, but
Half in black and white, half in Technicolor.
Yeah. We both passed 20 years of high school already.
Can you believe that?
I mean, yes, I can. It's scary. But you and I had a really good high school experience, I think. Like, it was fun.
Well, because we were so close in age, and not even just you and I, but our siblings as well, all four of us went to high school together.
Yeah, give the background of how we were all stacked, ranked, and everything.
Yeah, so Carolyn and Christopher were the same grade because of like the time of year that they were born. But you and I, even though we're the same age, we were different years growing up. So you were always a year ahead of me. So the stack would be me being the youngest. So we'll just do it. As I entered high school as a freshman, Bryan was already a sophomore, and Carolyn and Christopher were already juniors. So we had at least between 2 to 3 years together in high school, as depending on who you're looking at, whether it was our older siblings or you and I.
Yeah, and then again, to double down on that, all four of us went to the same high school, right?
Did I not? My apologies.
I think we just assume. I think your mom even used our address, I believe, to make sure you guys went to a plantation.
We used the wrong address. We were supposed to go to
Piper,
yeah.
So yeah, I remember all four of us went to the same high school, which was interesting because all four of us went to private school prior, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. That has its own funny stories / lessons. So we all went to the public school where all of a sudden we weren't wearing uniforms anymore. We were starting to wear real quote unquote clothes, but all four of us, none of us were cool. We tried to be, but we had no money.
Or had money, yeah.
Right. So we had no money to buy anything designer, anything like Nautica t-shirts. So I remember we were just trying to. Yeah. I remember my first day of high school because I was a freshman. You were still in 8th grade. So it was me starting as a freshman, and Chris and Carolyn were sophomores. And my first week, I had lunch with your sister because I had no friends. And she's like, come have lunch with me. And so that was actually a moment where, she actually really stepped up and helped me. And was like, you shouldn't be alone. Come have lunch with us, And so we had each other's backs. We all had our own friend circles, but we also had each other's backs. And that was kind of cool.
You mean like the four of us? Like even between you and I, you had your own friend group.
Yeah.
I had my own, Christopher had. There was a point though where they sort of started to cross over, which was really funny.
Mm-hmm. Well, we all started getting into the same activities. So fun fact, Jon and I and my brother, we were very much into student government. We were kind of the student government nerds where we were involved. We were doing pep rallies. We were doing prom or homecoming. We were just owning the school. So maybe we could talk about that a little bit because that I feel like that's one of my biggest core memories was just how you and I were so close and also how we used it to our benefit to win shit.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think we talked about that story when
we did
in our Brothers Not Cousins episode. But
yeah.
I was going to just tell you that I went back 2 years ago when I first moved back to Florida. I went with Rachel to a art night, which is really, really crazy because that teacher I just saw in Disney randomly 2 weeks ago. She's like, Jon, I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. But anyhow, I went back. I'm only telling you this because our pictures are still in the hallway.
Are they? I never knew they were up.
They went up finally. And all of our pictures are there. Me, senior year picture, they're there for representing from the 1960s. They have every student government elected office class from 1969 all the way and continuing, and ours are up there 2 years of them.
Why didn't we go back? We have to go back and take a picture of that. That's amazing.
We need to go back and definitely get in.
That's time capsule for sure.
Oh my God.
You talk a lot about, people always wonder, when I pass on, I'm just going to be a blip. you know, my family's gonna remember me, but the society won't. And you and I are far from being anything popular or legacy, but that kind of is. Like that's up there. And that's kind of cool. I love that actually.
Well, I mean, even like talking about that, and it sort of diverts from the conversation a bit. We'll go back, but like that's sort of what I really like about this podcast. Like, I actually don't even. I mean, I do care about sharing stories here, but I also care about capturing this for ourselves. There's a little bit
Yeah.
of like personal affiliation here, but going back to high school, we had a great time. I don't know. Do you remember Christmas tree lot? Can we talk about that?
Oh.
That was a
Yeah,
big one.
so since we were involved with student government, one and this was and to give you background on our student government, like, it was an actual class. It was the last hour of the day. So, you had to apply to be on what they called the board, and there was probably, like, 30 to 40 students in the school. Mind you, the school had about 25 to 2,700 students, and so I'm not gonna say we were the cream of the crop, but we were the ones that were nerdy enough that really wanted to be involved. And so one of the biggest things that happened in student government was we did a big fundraiser every year, and it was a Christmas tree lot. And this was like a full force business. Like, we had Christmas trees flown in from up north, mind you, because we're in Florida, and it had the whole tent erected. We had hundreds of trees. We were no different than the Lowe's Christmas tree lot you go to today to buy your Christmas tree. And it was like a full thing, right, John? Like, it was like a 4-week business.
It was the day after Thanksgiving. We'd have to wake up early in the morning, all of
Yeah.
us. There's probably 30, 40 people that would show up. They didn't fly those trees down because those be some bougie ass trees. They actually drove them in a truck, but
Oh, truck.
uh,
We didn't unload it.
we had to unload the
Yeah,
truck,
yeah,
and that
yeah.
took like 4 to 6 hours. It was probably 450 to 500 trees, ranging from like 2 to 3 feet all the way up to 14 and 18-foot trees that like local churches would get them from us and stuff. I mean, I'm talking like who were we? We weren't arborists. We were never trained on how to sell a tree. I mean, we just kind of jumped in.
And it was a moneymaker because I remember, like, this was, again, not to age us, but this was anywhere between 2000, 2002, where John and I were really involved in doing this Christmas tree thing. And I remember at the Home Depot or the Lowe's, Christmas trees were like 50 bucks. But I remember our trees were starting at almost like 100. And the reason why it was so we typically actually sold out of all the trees because it was such a community at that time. I don't know. I don't even think they do the Christmas tree lot anymore, but
You
it was such
know,
a community at the time that people wanted to spend that money because they knew it was going to our student government. It was going to school activities. And if you think about it, to your point, if you do the math on 500 trees at $100, like, we were making almost 50 grand in
yeah,
4 weeks. And the interesting part about it is that we had a board of 40 people, so I believe every day there was 2 board members that were excused from school to sit at that Christmas tree lot all day, just in case there was a sale that came through, monitor the Christmas trees. And so you actually were excited to sign up for a day or 2 to actually not be in class, to actually sit at the Christmas tree lot all day. I remember that was really cool. And I
right.
remember that on the weekends and stuff, you had shifts. It was no different than a job, except you weren't getting paid. So, like,
Can I tell you about one of my shifts?
please, yes.
So I can't even name names because they hold office and I just can't. But um uh my senior year is sort of like the that I sort of, I don't know, I smoked weed for the first time and all
Right.
of these things. And you and I also, side note, we were also like the unofficial graphic designers of a lot of things at school. We did a lot of swag, a lot of murals, a lot of shirts. So my year, I did the shirt design, and on the back it said "Got trees," which was actually a euphemism for like, "Do you have weed?" And so it was a joke. We were immature, like we thought, whatever. So one of our shifts one morning, my shift partner brought a little joint with her or
Yep.
them,
They,
and they, them, her, him. And I also had requested, this was when my dad was working for Denny's. So I was like, Dad, can you bring us breakfast? So we like literally smoked a joint. My dad dropped breakfast off. We were definitely high at like 6 a.m. at the Christmas tree lot.
yep.
Uh, I can say that now because I am here where I am in my life, successful, happy, and very far away from high school. But like that was like really one of the fun, and we still talk about them and I. We always joke about it. Got trees.
I love that story. Also, when you said "Got Trees," I actually thought you guys were playing, at the time, "Got Milk," that whole
Oh,
campaign. So
it was a mix.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, there was a couple of instances because I also remember that you and I, like, I think it begs the question, like, were we popular in high school? Because we people wanted to do that full day with us. So I remember getting permission to do, like, sometimes 2 or 3 days, because I had to sign up with a couple of different people because they just wanted to do it with me. So I remember, like, a couple of good instances where, like, at one point, again, I won't name names, I did it with someone on the board, and I think she had a crush on me at the time, so she was, like, hitting on me all day at the Christmas tree lot, which was really funny. But it was just all these different stories around, like, community and bonds and I don't know, and also, like, the life lessons, like, we ran a business, which is, like, kinda cool.
We did. We also like I really want I mean, a lot of the people that we, are still friends with are from that time of our life, to be honest. I
Yeah,
mean, still to this day, like, people that we, interact with, on online and in real life. I mean, I don't even wanna name names in this episode, but you know who you are. There's so many special people out there from that time of our life. Um, but the Christmas tree lot was awesome. We also, to your point about being popular, I did musical theater.
mhm,
uh,
you did.
I also had a little bit of a leg up because I went to Plantation Middle for that 8th grade year, like, while you guys were starting in Plantation High.
That's
So
true, actually.
I went in with, like, a small crew, and subsequently, the person my first friend at Plantation Middle School happened to be a football player,
Yeah,
and so I had a accidental link to that world as well. So I was like, in my world, I felt popular. I was like in honors classes. I had friends in football team. I was in theater. I was, uh, in student government. The person that I was just talking about and we used to do school announcements. Remember? I don't know if you remember at lunchtime, we used to do school announcements. I felt popular. I don't know. I was like,
that's so actually, now that you bring that up, because you did do your last year of middle school was at a public school where Carolyn, Chris, and I didn't, so we came in very raw to that experience of high school, almost shell-shocked.
yeah,
I don't think I found my footing until my junior year, to be honest. My first 2 years were very, um, not sad, but a little isolating, and I don't need to dive into that for this pod because it's all happy memories. But I remember, like, once we got into student government and we found our crew, because I think to your earlier point, we saw your group and my group, we definitely had some silos, but for the most part, we were a pretty cohesive group. Like, you and I hung out with the same circle. And it was just fun. Like, we also, like, since we were so involved, another quick story, maybe we could talk about is, like, we traveled, right? I remember one year we traveled around the southeast part of the US because our student government was one of the best student governments. And so we were going around training other schools and stuff. And I remember we went to the leadership conference, and the leadership conference was in Arkansas. And I remember that that was my very first flight. I took a flight, I think, when I was 2 or 3 to California. That was it. But we talked about this earlier, camping and stuff growing up because our family wasn't very rich. And I remember taking that flight straight to Little Rock, which is so random because we can unpack Little Rock and what that means to me and my family now. But that was such a cool experience. Like, you and I went to so many places together, you know?
do you remember that? First of all, the Little Rock thing is, I never thought about that. That's so ironic. Just in a nutshell for everybody else, that's where Kenzie and Oliver were both born.
Yeah.
But anyhow, also, did you remember that that was right after 9/11 and we were flying American Airlines? And I think Gomez, who was our advisor at the time, he got like stopped because he looked like a straight up terrorist.
I don't remember any of that. No, but
Well,
that's interesting because yeah, it was September 2001 when 9/11 happened. And then, yeah, that was
so
my senior year. That was my senior year, so that makes sense. Yeah, that tracks.
yeah. And so there was like all of this like new America around it too. And so with the idea of being part of like a government affiliated program, like student government, essentially is what I meant to say, not government affiliated, but like one where it's anyway, mimics a government of sorts. That like that trip was really monumental because it like allowed us to sort of like be part of something that felt a little bit more America and in America that I remember feeling good, one that like represented like we keep using the word community, but I did feel in that time like this really strong bond between everybody where like some of our differences didn't matter and like some of the bigger things mattered. I felt that energy at those I think it was called the
SASC? South
Southern Association of Student Councils.
Yes, SASC. I
And
remember
then
that.
we were also and then we were so we were our school was the president of the Southern Association of Student Councils. And then we
Yes.
also, and that was on the regional level. And then we also became the president of the South Florida Association of Student
No, it was
Council.
all Florida because we traveled around the different regions in Florida training them. 'Cause remember we went to the
That's
Piggly
right.
Wiggly in
Right.
the Panhandle. That was the first time I went to a Piggly Wiggly.
Uh, that's right. I remember that. God,
I
we
I don't even like, if you think about, like, high school, I don't know how we did it all because you and I worked not we worked with part-time jobs. Student government was a job in itself.
oh,
We
yeah.
also traveled. We were in honors classes, and again, I'm not tooting our own horn. I'm just looking back and I'm like, "Jesus," like, to have that same level of energy today would be so amazing because I feel like we had, like, 5 different things going on at any given time, and if that didn't teach time management skills to us, I don't know what would've because, like, we were in it, you know?
I I struggled. I'm not gonna lie. I'll use this opportunity to say I struggled. I was not at that time, I was not, managing my neurodivergence or ADHD very well. I was trying very, very hard to keep up with sort of what my parents expected, which were good grades, honors classes, sort of like, getting ready for college, something that you and I and our we didn't really have too much modeled of that for us. Our generation before us didn't have like sort of the American, uh, you know, trajectory of like school all the way up to college and all of those things. And so
Yeah,
I personally struggled. It was hard, and I think a lot of those things, those activities and such, were me trying to connect with people who had some level of legacy that I could learn from. I mean, I do remember a lot of our friends being wealthier and having a little bit more of a footing on things, and although I love these people very, very much, this was not sort of like this was just a byproduct of that, which was like I was looking, I was watching, I was trying to see what they were doing and like how I can advance myself because again, we were sort of in the predicament we were in financially. But
I think and when you mention that, it's true, like, a lot of our friends, like, our high school was a definition of segregation, and what do I mean by that? Um, there was 2 like, we had 2 different parking lots, remember this? There was almost like
oh, shit.
the lower income students kinda parked on the dirt parking lot, and then the more affluent ones parked in the actual, like, cemented parking lot.
Like
And so, like, it was interesting how we had,
repeal
like
rights.
yeah, it was like an interesting, like, modern day segregation. And I think what's interesting to call out to everyone listening is that you and I kind of were friends with everyone. But to your point, the core people that we worked with as student government and very our core circle had money. Like they were the ones that got cars at 16 or even 15 before they even turned 16. And in a way, it was our first go at keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah.
Like, like you and I, like we made it work, but we weren't rich. Our parents did not have like they had a little bit of money to help us here and there, but we were not driving fancy cars. Like I think you got a car, but I actually was driving my mom's car when I could. And we were just trying to keep up. And that's so
Right.
interesting. And it didn't feel stressful. I don't feel sad about that. I'm not feeling bad about it. But when you look at it, that's kind of what we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, but okay, so, totally, but, I think that, like, because of who we associated with also, it gave us so much liberty, and the parking lot that you're talking about was the one that was gated and manned by Mr. Mays on the little
Security.
security, and we were one of the only schools in the region that had off-campus lunch, so meaning at lunchtime, everybody could leave and come back. You had an hour.
Yes.
And we would run out to that parking lot and look for a car with an open seat, and we just whoever had one, jump in, or you give your money to them. "Can you get me a"
Yeah. Oh my God. Every day. Every day.
Oh my goodness, but, oh my we would fast food was just the norm.
Well, our metabolisms were at an all-time high, so it was easy. But yeah, I remember like it was every day was a different fast food. Either we were getting in someone's car to go, and you would literally run because it was an hour, so it took you a good 5 to 10 minutes to get out of the parking lot. By
Yeah.
the time you got to these restaurants or fast food, it was packed with everyone from school.
Yep.
So you almost ordered and then ate in the car ride just to get that back into the almost the quote unquote good parking lot. And so it was like a rat race, but it was almost like if you had a friend with a car, you made it. because you were able to do off-campus lunch. If not, I remember as a freshman, like, we just ate on campus because where are we going?
Wait, also, do you remember do you remember I don't know if you remember this. This was at the time where, like, we were straddling, like, digital payments being accepted in more places. So, like,
Were we?
yes, at the beginning, fast food only took cash. Suddenly, they took debit after, and then that was a big deal because you'd have to have cash to give to people, and then they'd come back with receipt and change.
But to be fair, yes, that is very true. To be fair, though, we were high schoolers, so if someone was going to Wendy's, I was giving someone $3 to get me stuff off the dollar menu.
Yep, yep.
So, it was like our lunches weren't fabulous, it was just whatever we could afford, and then those days that you felt lavish, you would drive to the Broward Mall and eat in the food court, and we did that my senior year because the mall was a little bit further. You ate at the mall, and then I didn't go back to school after. Those are the days I would skip,
Yep,
and
yep.
it was rare. It was probably like I probably did like 4 times, but it was so yeah. Oh, it was so fun.
Yeah, and, like, the skipping schooling and having lunch in the Brown Mall, that's more my life now. I just I work half a day, I eat my lunch,
You
now
go
I'm
to
just
Panda Express, you're at the a Cinnabon after, all the
close, I'm
things.
taking my computer to a coffee shop, and I'm just, like, working and just living my life, like, I do
Ugh.
not run around anywhere now. The only running I
Well,
do is at
I mean, again, we could wrap this up, but I have one more core memory was when a
Nope.
CD got released, you would go to Broward Mall for lunch and buy the CD at the CD store. Remember? Like, this because that's when you had to buy a disc. I remember when all the Britney albums came out, I made my friend Dina drive me to the mall, and I would get those albums because I had no one else taking me, and that was, like, a thing, owning a CD. Like, remember? Like, everyone had burned copies of mixes and all
I
that
was
stuff.
just gonna say they would burn it.
And those were our rich friends because having a CD burner was money.
Oh my
Uh, it was a time. I actually loved being
I
alive
oh,
and in high school at that time.
me too. I mean, it was sort of like the advent of the internet.
Yeah.
The internet was coming out. We started using the computer for school projects. I mean, up until then, we had done everything sort of analog. So it was a really neat time to sort of like be around for that.
It
You
was but it was also a simpler time because to give people context, we had no cell phone. People were just trying to get cell phones, and they weren't smart cell phones. The only thing that was on that was smart about it was the snake.
they came on the Nokia things,
We
yeah.
we we had no social media.
Yeah.
So we were always so very present in our physicality of people that were with us. We didn't really talk to people. That was the rise of like AOL chat rooms and stuff, which that's a whole episode in itself that we could talk to people about because you have stories. But it was such a, I don't know, it's not a simple time, but it also a simple time, which is kind of cool.
Literally, like, with it being the advent of the internet, like actually, Facebook didn't begin until my summer at college. So that would have been
It was summer 2004. I remember I got access to it because
oh,
UF was one of the
you
first
needed
college.
you needed a school ID to sign in.
You need a school email address. That was the time when Facebook allowed you to like put your school schedule on there so you can click on the different classes and see other kids in your classes. So it was very much a on campus networking tool. Obviously now it's become a shit show. But yeah, back then it was that, but we didn't even have that
Right.
until we were in college.
Right.
So
I was
our
just
high
I was just
school,
I was just corroborating your point around the people in the groups that we were hanging out with were actually people in groups that we had made connections with in real time, in real life. There was really no
yes,
superfluous like, "Oh, and this is my friend that I met on this or whatever," but yeah.
we had none of that. Like even like none of, yeah, it's so when you think back on our time in high school, like a lot of it was good memories. And I think we definitely have our dark times there, but for the most part, like it was a pretty positive experience. And we can end it on this note of like, I think it was a positive experience because I had you and you had me. And yes, we had our friends, we had our circles, but you and I trusted each other. And that helped.
I always knew regardless of like how I felt or if I got into something with somebody else that I could that or I knew how about this? I knew my day would end walking home with you or with you. I mean, every single day. That was to some degree really comforting and brought me a lot of security. So
It's true. Yeah, you, me, and my brother and sister and your sister, we walked to my house every day after school together when all 4 of us were together for a good 2 years when we were all in the same school. So, yeah, good experience, good topic. I'm glad you brought this up because I think about high school a lot, because it just pops up. I see friends on social media now and things, but, um, I like it. We had a good time. Good 4 years.
Great 4 years. I'm glad I got to spend it with you. I would do it all over again, and I would run for student government with you all over again and take over the whole school all over again.
I agree. The meaning of out loud and laughing was very different back then, but we were definitely laughing,
And we were definitely loud.
but we weren't out.
We were not out. That's another story. Okay.
Thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, we love you guys. Take care.
Bye.